it's not great as far as the amount of what looks to be brand new content that sometimes is just a blip. Obviously, we as a store get to pick what we put our promotional muscle behind, so we're going to put it behind something like Power Fantasy or Uncanny X-Men because those are books that are going to be coming out constantly.
I like the phrase promotional muscle.
In the Midwest, the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Highs they're approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. It gets hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
W. Dal Bush.
Dal Bush.
Dal Bush.
Dal.
Dal.
W. Dal Bush.
I know exactly what you mean because I was having a conversation today with Gregory Titus, who is hard at work on this year's Christmas card. Neat. And quick segue into that. I gave him just the premise.
Mm-hmm. Concept.
Yeah, well, not even. Just a
theme.
A stepping off point.
Uh-huh.
And tied it into some of his suggestions from last year that we did not go with. And he took it in a very fun Greg Titus direction, acknowledging that sometimes he gets so into it, he puts in way too much detail for what's going to be a very small printed card.
Small.
So he's going to step that back. And he had a sketch, and I had some tiny notes and suggestions. One of my suggestions, which won't make sense to anyone who sees it, but was the word Krampus.
Mm-hmm.
And in that conversation, he also brought up something completely unrelated to a holiday card and said, hey, what if I did this?
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm suggesting it, I'll just do it for free. And I said, I never thought of that as a thing. 100% do it. And I'm definitely going to pay you for it.
Yeah.
You don't just give away the thing that you not only do for a living, but kind of were put on this earth to do.
There's only so many hours in a day, and you're spending them on us.
And look, we are incredibly lucky that we have such I was going to say dedicated fan base, but just some really solid support from
friends,
our community.
I'll call them friends.
Yeah,
call them all friends. You're all friends.
Just so yesterday we got in the second round of shelf plaques for our shelf sponsors.
Yep.
And part of doing that is after they're affixed to the shelf that they are sponsored, sending photos to the people that sponsored those shelves to say, hey, here's what
it looks like on the shelf.
Yeah. So
instead of just saying like we did it, here's a picture of what it looks like.
Everybody responded to the photos.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Everybody's excited. Some are like, I can't wait to show my kids because they're up. The names are on there. Jason from 11 O'Clock Comics took that photo and turned it into this incredibly nice post about the store on social media about how he hasn't really had a local comic shop for a long, long time, and he doesn't live in Chicago, but he considers us it, mainly because of this podcast.
Nice. We've been very lucky that a lot of people have donated a lot of their time, money, energy to what we're doing with Challengers, and that's fantastic. In fact, our good friend Brian Garside from Managed Comics was kind enough to even donate a couple minutes of content for this episode of Contest of Challengers, where he brings up...
We'll get there.
I thought this would be a nice lead into it.
I know, but I wasn't...
Because I wanted to put it in very early in the episode.
Sure, and normally I was going to start with it, but since we were talking about something else, but I wasn't finished with the sponsorship part. So I messed up on Matthew Rosenberg's plaque.
You did.
Of all the plaques that were made this time around, they're supposed to say this shelf sponsored by, and then all caps the person's name.
Mhm.
Somehow his didn't say that. His said
We have an alternate version that we had done first, which was basically a sponsor this shelf
right.
sign. So people could, in the store before we were really rolling it out and everyone else's, the first batch of people were up on the shelves, you could see like, here's what it would look like if you did this. Ask us about doing that. So we have that template in the same system as
Yes, but
the other one.
that the place we get them from doesn't save templates.
So how did you do it then, Patrick?
I can tell you how I did it.
Okay.
It doesn't save templates, but it has a memory of the lines that you've used.
Mhm.
So there's 3 different lines possible on these plaques because some people's names are too long to fit in one line. I break it up into 2.
Okay.
So when you start typing,
You
this
know,
shelf sponsored by,
it autocompletes.
it auto-completes.
Uh-oh.
Somehow it auto-completed to sponsor this shelf, Matthew Rosenberg, which he did. So I had sent him the photo and said, hey man, I messed this up. We're going to make a new plaque for you because I did it wrong, but I just wanted you to see that, we did make a plaque and it is up and he's the only person in the crime mystery section, but I'm going to fix it. I do wait for them to stack up a little bit. So we're placing, a handful.
Right.
Or
We don't order
20
one plaque.
at a
we
time.
order, 5 to 12.
honestly, just to save on shipping, really. And he got back to me and said, hey, the shelf looks great. Do you want me to re-sponsor to cover making a new plaque?
Oh, buddy.
And I said, man, that is an incredible gesture. No,
100% don't do that.
it is my mistake. Oops, I just hit my microphone. It is my mistake. I'm going to fix it.
Mhm.
I cannot believe you'd be so generous as to offer that. Thank you, but no.
Uh-huh.
So then what does he do?
Bought a bunch of graphic novels.
Bought a huge stack of graphic novels off the website.
And then, additional twist, we were out of stock on one of
Yeah.
them. So we
Yep.
had to send him a message saying, hey, we screwed this up too.
Yeah.
What a week.
Right. But I mean, how incredibly generous
It is, very
to
much
be
so.
like, hey, I'll responsor. I'm like, no, of course, don't responsor.
Very much so.
So he just bought a ton of graphic novels.
Mhm.
So let that be a lesson to all of you out there.
Mhm.
Even if you don't want to sponsor a shelf,
You can just buy some books.
just look at our website, see what we got.
Got some books.
I mean, we want to.
Sometimes even the ones that we say we have, we actually have.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's
that's nice.
about what I want to say. I don't want to say 10-1, but it's like 9 to 10. Like 90% of the time we have what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We desperately need to do a massive inventory because we found over the last couple of years that a lot of our Shopify inventory has been becoming inaccurate for one reason or another. I could list 6 reasons why I think that's possible, but I don't really want to get into them. So I'm just going to say that our in-store inventory has not been matching our online inventory as far as our overall database is concerned.
Which,
So-
as you can imagine, is kind of the kiss of death for a store that does a lot of online sales.
Yeah, it
But-
super sucks.
But it is not catastrophically irrelevant. There's a guy that shops with us who lives like right on the border of Chicago, Indiana. Like to get to the store, he takes like 6 buses and comes in every couple of months.
Mhm.
But he also buys a lot online.
Right.
But when he buys a lot online, he's buying like a stack of 20 to 30 comics.
Mhm.
Inevitably, we're out of at least one of those books.
Yeah, so we desperately need to do an inventory, but the problem with doing an inventory is that it takes a lot of time. We have a lot of individual items in the store, and to do an inventory for just the Marvel comics, for example, which is just one category, we would have to physically scan every single Marvel comic that we have on the shelves, in the back, on the facsimile edition spinner rack, in Sidekicks. We don't have to do back issues, and I don't think we have to do subscriber books, but just doing the Marvel stuff alone takes hours, and that's just the Marvel comics. If we wanted to do DC comics, other publishers, graphic novels, days of work, literally like consecutive days of work. without sleep, without breaks.
And if there's one thing you've learned, you being a listener, is that since the pandemic, we have nothing but free time every single day of the week.
Yeah, one of the ways that we used to do inventories was basically because Mondays were kind of free. We would receive all of our stuff on Tuesdays, and then we'd sell them on Wednesdays. So I would have time on Mondays, and sometimes even Sundays, to work on that stuff. Now we get deliveries just for new books throughout the week. It's now started to be a thing where we're getting our lunar shipments, which is DC, Image, and a whole bunch of other people, on Mondays. So now the Mondays where I would normally have at least a couple hours to plug away at a project, or, Molly Jane could come in early and we could spend 3 or 4 hours really just burning through a category, can't do anymore because that time is now taken up by 2+ hours of unpacking lunar stuff that would normally be done in the past Thursday or Friday. Now it's on Monday.
Or this week, it's on Friday.
No, I'm sorry, Patrick. Well, now maybe if they
UPS.
actually come in on Friday, then maybe Monday we'll do an inventory on Marvel stuff.
Well, I actually got a UPS because normally we get a FedEx, hey, this has been created.
Right. Which just means the label's been printed out and slapped on a box. Doesn't mean it's gone anywhere yet. In fact, it usually doesn't for a few days.
But today I got from UPS, hey, you're getting this tomorrow.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you're getting it tomorrow.
Me too.
So
because we always get PRH on
Here's what I wonder.
Fridays.
You're sure it's the new books?
It's 4 boxes.
Probably the new books, but
Yeah. I mean, if it was a smaller number, I'd think it was reorder.
restock. Yeah.
But it's 4 boxes.
Yeah. That's. I mean, with the amount I did on Wednesday, I don't think it would be more than 2
Also,
boxes unless they pack them very weirdly.
4 boxes is not that much for a lunar shipment, especially when
One entire box is probably the new Ed Brubaker. Sean
more
Phillips
than one
graphic
box
novel.
will be that. Yeah.
No, I mean one of the 4 Gutbusters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel really bad for you because you saw how you're getting all of the PRH stuff for this week with all of the David Mazzucchelli Batman Year One artist editions in their own individual boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Fun
so
times.
I'm not so much worried about those because we don't always get all of the PRH trades on Fridays.
Correct. Yeah. This past week we got 99% of them on Monday.
Yeah.
Which was another fun thing that happened on Monday.
Sure.
But anyway, we desperately need to do an inventory on comics and graphic novels because while I do an inventory every Monday morning now on the new books, that's just getting them back in line for like a little while. They desynchronize over time. I don't know why it's happening. Again, I could probably list 5 or 6 reasons why I think that is, but some of those would be directed at people I don't want to direct them at, so I'm not going to direct them at because it's all speculation and hyperbole.
Oh man, it's me, isn't it? It's always me.
So anyway,
Shifting gears entirely.
shifting gears entirely to how we're bad at our jobs.
Let me jump in right there and say that a lot of times, and I'm sure no one can ever tell by listening, we don't have a structured game plan for what we're going to talk about.
No, in fact, I thought we were going to talk about this about 10 minutes ago, and then we didn't.
Right. And I keep doing like that. That's the one thing I had to talk about this time. So it's definitely coming up right now, but I want to have a little preface where I know how often I get something wrong.
Sure.
Specifically creator names or issue numbers, like just little facts of things that I didn't even know I'd be talking about. And I would just say, oh yeah, didn't Ryan Benjamin do the art for that? And in my head, I think maybe I'm right, but I don't correct it. I don't list and edit or say, by the way,
the important
that was
thing
actually
when you're doing
Paul
a
Ryan.
podcast is to be 100% certain of everything you're saying at all times.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I would listen to this and say, just shut up. You got that wrong.
Listen, dummy.
And I know how often I get things wrong. And it's not out of malice, but it's also like if this was a
Laziness and incompetence.
very specific financial concern or a thing that we were dedicating way more time than we do to it, or if it was funding any significant aspect of our business and or lifestyle, there might be
we would hold it to a higher standard.
actual gear. Like I'm excited for the microphone update we made this year. But do you remember years ago when we would set up a table and have 2 microphones with 2, I can't remember, screens to stop the popping of peas.
I literally don't.
And
remember that.
I'd bought a device that I saw Colt Cabana using for his, that we would plug the microphones into, and it would record onto your device, your iPhone or your whatever it was. Like, we
I
had
don't remember any of
that, and the sound quality was never really any better.
No.
And if anything, it was open to more problems.
Yeah, the interface between the technology would always have a thing where it's like, oh, suddenly this didn't work, or this
Yeah.
didn't record, or
Yeah.
that dropped
But
out
I
or
mean, we
whatever.
spent money over the years. I was going to say a lot of money. Not a lot of money. We spent money over the years on
A lot of money for
like,
us.
We still have
for enthusiasts.
a box full of microphones and mic stands and
Yep.
mic screens and mic cables.
Mhm.
God, I remember running into a Guitar Center in, I don't know, Lincoln Park, because they had a microphone sale, and I'm like, oh man, we're gonna upgrade everything. Gotta get these cables.
So many microphones.
Yeah, I still have the PA system that I bought for Serpent Crown back in the, oh man, I guess well over 20 years ago. So we used to bust that out when we'd have things in the door. Anyway, so we are not,
I would say we're not rigorous with how we either plan out or execute an individual episode of Contest of Challengers.
well, I was going to say we're not above making mistakes. So often they are not necessarily in need of correction.
Yeah, again, some of it is just misspeaking or getting something in our personal lives inaccurate, and it's like, who is there to apologize to at that point?
Chip Mosier.
Once or twice. Yeah.
But anyway, this time we were erroneous in the way we assumed the customer-facing aspect of Managed Comics showcased a specific element that we discussed last week.
Yes.
And because we as consumers usually put our products in the back end, meaning we're not logging into the customer
we
interface.
don't use the front end interface for Managed Comics.
I do on
that
occasion. I do on occasion, but only rare times.
Yeah, most of the times I'm doing it through doing anything through the front end is when I'm trying to accumulate links and stuff for the monthly catalog emails. So I'll go through and I'll try and find stuff, which is occasionally I'll find something and it's like, hey, this isn't surfacing right, or hey, this doesn't have the right thing. And Managed Comics is always very quick to correct it and make it good. And I thought that was a good policy, correcting things.
So what did we get wrong last week?
We, to my knowledge, got wrong how Managed Comics displays prices on net price and foil covers for Marvel. Marvel covers are not net priced items. They are reduced discount items, but Managed Comics is nice enough to treat them the same way they treat net priced items, which is different than how we thought they did.
Apparently, and I say this because neither of us have physically bothered to look into it after we were corrected. You can do it right now.
Keep going.
They don't show a net price. They show please inquire.
Which is exactly what we wanted them to show, and we thought they weren't doing that.
So knowing that it does that, do you still feel it's important to send the potential pre-orderer an email saying, hey, this is the price?
Well, this is a thing that we don't have a choice on. That's just how Managed Comics does it. If you change the price on something when you're approved, well, so here's the thing. When someone, and Brian can definitely send us an email.
Do you want to look this part up first and then?
No. Well, yeah. So we'll finish off one thing first. When
do you think they're going to change the DC logo to the bullet?
Maybe on the next, when they do their big revisions eventually.
Probably not until October is when.
So
it's
let's find what's a Marvel book that's got a foil variant. I don't think of something.
Just type in a facsimile. Any Marvel facsimile.
Marvel facsimiles don't do foil variants. DC does facsimile foil variants.
Okay, there's definitely a foil for something in. Oh, it's not on our website, so you can't look.
What's something in what's a new?
I was going to say Wolverine Revenge, but I don't know.
Let's try Psylocke. I think Psylocke #1 has a foil cover because I think I've been approving that. Even though Psylocke is not in the new catalog, it was technically already listed as a
orderable product.
Orderable book. Okay, so I can't add it without logging in, so let me log in real quick.
Sure. This is important for us to see how it is on.
Oh, it's
and Dale's doing this on his phone. Whenever I do the front end stuff, I do it on a desktop. I do a lot of stuff on my phone, but not as much as I think society expects us to.
So pre-order cover. Okay, so with Psylocke foil cover, it doesn't say it doesn't give a please inquire or anything. It just says that the book is, like, right at the top, it'll say that the cover price is $4.99, and then there is no price displayed when you are ordering the foil variant.
Okay.
At least on my phone. I don't know if it displays differently on the desktop.
Does it show prices for every cover iteration, or
it doesn't? And
can you open up the foil cover in a separate window? Okay.
No. It's just a cover, because I tried that first. Which is actually a thing. We're going to get to a point where we explain that we were wrong and that we owe Brian an apology, and we're going to air his explanation of how we got everything wrong last week. But before I do that, I'm going to mention a circumstance that got us into a bit of a trouble with one of our customers, because they had pre-ordered a Red Sonja variant, not knowing that it was a like $30 cover.
Yeah.
Because Dynamite has specific open order variants that are way more expensive than the regular cover.
Yeah, and they assign a retail price to those.
But the way Managed Comics lists prices, at least according to Psylocke #1, is that it'll say the book is $4.99 and it won't differentiate if one of the covers is a higher price. Again, we can see that on the back end, and we can do other stuff. So when we are approving a pre-order, and we are approving a pre-order at a different price than what Managed Comics has in the system, and for net priced items, it does not have the retail price because the retail price has not been decided on yet. We decide that, not the manufacturer. When you are changing the price and you're approving a pre-order, once you change the price, you are sending it back to the customer for them to say yes or no to the price that you've just quoted them. However, if you approve a pre-order, you can go into the back end and just change the price to whatever you want.
Okay.
And that doesn't require an additional approval. So if we wanted to do more steps that way, we could get around having to send it to the customer for approval, but it would just be, instead of the customer having to approve it and knowing what they're paying, we would just be changing it behind their back, more or less.
Sure.
Which obviously we don't want to do.
Correct.
So yeah, it would be, if I could make one little notation, it would be nice if Managed Comics listed that a foil variant was going to be a higher price.
Did you have more to the Red Sonja story?
Oh, yeah, and basically just that a customer signed up for a higher priced foil variant for Red Sonja issue. We approved it because it wasn't something where we had to tell them the price. That was the Dynamite price. Yes. They said it was like $30 or $50 or whatever it was. And so we said, okay, this customer wants to order it. Great, done. Then the book came in and we invoiced that customer and they went, why is it $50? And we had to go, you ordered it. And they said, I didn't know it was $50. If they had gone into their account afterwards,
they'd been able to see
and looked at the pre-orders. But for a lot of people, if you see a price on the screen and it says this book is $4.99, you wouldn't assume that the one you're pre-ordering is not applicable.
Like when Marcus-san had ordered a special after-the-fact San Diego foil cover for a Conan issue, because it was not a specific cover in the monthly listing, but it was oh, by the way, you could get this Conan #1 foil from San Diego for this price, then I'm sure it showed him the correct price.
Sure.
So for something like that, I always look up those now, like the DC foils. I look in to make sure that they have a different cover price.
Yeah. Like I'm going to look at Red Sonja 13, which is open for pre-order.
But so no, does it do that with the DC books then? Where all DC books, like we talked about last week, have like a couple bucks extra for the foil cover.
I don't know. Let's find out.
We'll look at one of those next.
Yeah. Okay. So like, I don't know if I can open. I'm going to try and open another tab and look at Diamond's site to make sure I'm getting this right, because it looks like there's.
It's always tough to work on a Dynamite specific variant cover because they have sometimes 30 plus variant covers.
Yeah. So let me just I'm going to bring up Diamond real quick and see if I can do this. It's tough to log into my phone because Diamond uses a username and account number and a password. And sometimes trying to do that, see it overrid it.
And it doesn't autofill all three.
Thanks.
Every password saving device does a username and a password, not a username, an account number, and a password.
Yeah, which I don't know why a username also needs a password. That's a Diamond thing, and I don't know if Diamond's listening to this.
Especially since our username
Search item database.
and our account number are virtually the same. One just has
Red Sonja
3 extra characters.
13. No, wait, is it 13 or 14?
That's a question I can't answer.
All right, we're going to try 14. And because I'm in this typing field, I can't go back to the other tab. I love doing all this on my phone. I love it.
Do you want to go grab your pad?
No, because then this is already taking so long. Go back. So what is this? Red Sonja 2023 number 14. It's giving me Red Sonja number 14, which is not Red Sonja 2023 number 14. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, every publisher on the planet for just reusing the same covers again and again, or the same titles. Yeah, okay. So, for example, for Red Sonja 2023 number 14, one of the covers that you can order on Managed Comics is the Cover L Perillo Limited Virgin cover.
Yes.
And you just, and again, at the top of the page, it just says, Red Sonja number 14, $4.99. However, the Cover L Perillo Virgin variant is a $50 variant. That is a $50 cover price variant. That means it's still at the normal discount for a store. You'll get your 40 to 50% off, but the cover price is $50.
Not $5.
Correct. So if you were ordering that through Managed Comics, you would assume that's just one of the variants that you can get at the normal $4.99 price. And we would approve that, thinking it was an order for a $50 book, not realizing the customer didn't see it wasn't $50. So stuff like that, I don't know if it's just a data issue where they meant to filter that one out. You can, through Managed Comics, gratefully filter out incentive variants so customers don't see them on the front end. We as a store don't allow pre-orders for incentive variants because we don't know that we're going to qualify for them.
Correct.
And frequently, if we do qualify for them, they're going to be at a higher price, and we don't like doing that ahead of time.
Yes.
You can't necessarily filter out something like this because this is just an open order cover that happens to be $50 because Dynamite decided it was $50. So that's stuff that maybe
it costs,
could be looked at.
It takes 10 times the effort to take a logo off of a book.
Exactly.
So it's only fair that it be represented in the cover price of the book.
But anyway, in all that investigation, we've gotten way off track. And the thing that we got off track on was that net price items are displayed on the front end, the consumer-facing side of Managed Comics with a Please Inquire. So when you order that through Managed Comics for the store that you're subscribing from, the store then sets the price, sends that back to the customer, and the customer says, yes, I want that, or no, I don't.
It does not erroneously show the net pricing.
Correct. It doesn't reveal that to the customer, and the customer has no reason to expect that to be the price of the item. And we got that wrong. So thanks, Brian, for bringing that to our attention and providing this clarification.
And also content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, thanks so much for giving us like 45 seconds to a minute of not having to talk.
Sure.
I love that.
If you add in the amount of time you were searching on your phone, it's
true, which was great audio content, is me going on my phone and trying to navigate to find out whether or not I'm about to say something completely wrong about Managed Comics again. This time I didn't, I don't think. And again, if it displays differently on the desktop, Brian, you can absolutely let us know. We're happy to make that clarification. I would, however, point out that many, many people, according to the metrics that we get from Shopify, engage with our site entirely on their phones. Entirely on their phones.
Sure. Yeah. Do we need to start, because we're using my phone to record.
Yes.
And our lovely lapel microphones. Should we have your phone out and you have an ear pod in, and you be on the phone with Brian so he can listen?
Why don't we just do this all as a Zoom call from now on?
Yeah, so he could
Those are easy to record.
He could give you live corrections in your ear.
Sure.
So we don't have to worry about fumbling through a correction.
But then all the corrections are just going to be me putting U's into words that don't have U's. I don't want that. No.
It's weird. And adding A to the end of it.
I'm not about that. Sorry, what?
What just happened? Sorry, Dal just nipped out to Tim Hortons to get some donuts. I want to go to Tim Hortons.
You can drive to one for sure.
Okay, I'm doing that tomorrow.
Okay, great.
You have to work.
And then back all of
You're picking up the books.
All the learner stuff and all the PR stuff. Oh no.
I'll do it with one hand as I'm driving.
Oh no.
Hello, this is a brief interlude with not only myself, Patrick, but with
George.
my brother, and we are here to shamelessly shill for the Alzheimer's 5K that we are a part of coming up in September.
September 15th at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois.
We have literally just buried our parents, and we are making this plea now to remind you that we are raising money for Alzheimer's, and you can visit my page at rememberingfrances.com. That's Frances spelled Frances, rememberingfrances.com. And you can visit the team page at forfran.com. That's FOURFRAN.com. And George's own page.
Yeah, that's act.alz.org/go-to.
Yeah, just go to
the number
forfran.
4 Fran.
Just go to forfran.com
And you can pick
scroll
me,
down.
yeah.
You can pick George. George, why are we doing this?
We're doing this to raise money for care, for awareness, and to find a cure. Because of the top 6 diseases in the country, this is the only one that has no survivor so far. We are looking for that first survivor.
But it's conceivable in our lifetime.
It could be. Some significant advances were made in the last year, and 2 new drugs came out. There had been to this point nothing that could slow the progression, and these have shown some very good progress in that. So it could happen in our lifetime.
And as you know, this is important to us because our mother passed away 4 years ago from this terrible disease. So we've been doing all we can since then. George especially, who's co-chair for this now.
Well, we've done away with the chair people, so I am just on the walk committee.
Oh, I
And
see.
This is since 2019.
What does that mean for your responsibility load? Same.
Same.
Yeah. So anyway, you can help us out by donating at rememberingfrances.com or forfran.com, and we'd appreciate it.
Yes, very much so. Please, whatever you can give is acceptable. Thank you.
So we're at a point where the weeks of new releases are such a ridiculous roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
where I'm going to use the last couple of weeks as well as I can remember them an indication, because next week, and this is going to go out on, what day is today? 8, 9, 10,
Today's
like
the
around
8th.
the 12th or so. So
No.
that week,
12th, yeah, 11th,
Monday?
12th?
It goes up Sunday night, but I call it Monday morning.
Okay.
So that week's week of books has 16 new number ones.
Mhm.
This past week had 15 new number ones. Last week had 6. And they were almost all Marvel.
Yeah.
The week before that had 14. So it used to be around 8 as a rule. But when you have 16 new number ones, not counting all of the regular books that come out with
Right.
their normal sequential numbering, you cannot. Oh, also, with those 16 number ones, there's also the new Brubaker Phillips House of the Unholy hardcover.
Yep.
There's also Unico Volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
Those are books that we want to highlight as well.
Yes, and
So now that means 18 new projects.
yeah, it's hard to count graphic novels because they become their own special hell of, like, you definitely want to promote this new softcover collection of a thing that's never been collected, or you want to promote this new graphic novel that's all new material, or you
Yeah.
want to promote this collection of previously digital content that is now in print. And that's alongside all of the comics, which there used to be so many less number ones because everything more or less was an ongoing series. Now it's so heavy on miniseries and one-shots that you're getting a ton of new number ones each week that will never have a second issue or will never have a 5th issue. Marvel especially, because we're just coming off of Blood Hunt, which was replete with one-shots, 3-issue miniseries. And now we're into Venom War, which is going to start having a billion one-shots, 3-issue miniseries.
Yeah, so next week there's Venom War Carnage, Venom War Venomous.
Mm-hmm.
There's also books, a lot of books we don't go out of our way to promote would be like Giant Size Thor number 1.
Right.
Miles Morales Annual number
Yeah.
1.
So all these annuals and all these giant sizes for things that also had annuals, like Immortal Thor just had an annual like 2 weeks ago. And now it's Giant Size Thor, which is a brand new original story with a backup story that's been previously printed.
And they also had 2 new issues of Immortal Thor, the regular series, in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. It's not great as far as the amount of what looks to be brand new content that sometimes is just a blip. You know, obviously, we as a store get to pick what we put our promotional muscle behind, so we're going to put it behind something like Power Fantasy or Uncanny X-Men because those are books that are going to be coming out constantly.
I like the phrase promotional muscle because it sounds like we have the ability. But you know what? So you did the video this week.
I did,
and you weren't even on camera.
That's what made people want to watch it.
But we heard from several. I was going to say a lot. We heard from several people that like they bought Power Fantasy just because you recommended it,
even though I recommended it badly,
without even saying what it was about.
I forgot.
Or they bought.
I forgot to give the pitch.
Or they bought the Chris Giarrusso Venom War cover,
which is
because
great.
You highlighted it. We're out of it now.
I just think it's real cool.
Yeah, it is, but it's gone.
He's doing it for each issue.
Yeah,
and I already had to do the FOC on issue 2, which is why I wanted to promote issue 1 because I want people to get involved in that variant cover for when the next one comes out, and we're already getting it.
So you can say promotional muscle, and it does. It does apply.
I think there's some truth to it. I don't want to make it sound like we can just snap our fingers and sell 100 copies of something. It's still work, but part of what we do in our job is try and decide what stuff we're going to promote to our customers, what things at the front counter we're going to say, hey, don't miss out on this, what we're going to highlight in an email, what we're going to send out on a social media post, what we're going to talk about on the podcast. All that stuff is us sorting through all of the number ones and saying, okay, I can't pitch you on 16 books, nor do I even want to. I can tell you about 3 that I think are really good. Like This week, obviously we wanted to talk about the Power Fantasy, we wanted to talk about Uncanny X-Men, we wanted to talk about Red Before Black. We did all those to varying degrees of success. And we'll find out how that goes.
That suddenly Boom announced that Red Before Black has gone back to second printing already.
That's great.
So good job, us.
Image announced this week they're going back to press on grommets 1 and 2, which is amazing. I didn't think with issue 4 coming out that they would bother to reprint the first 2 issues of a 7-issue limited series, but they are, thanks.
And didn't they already announce a sellout of that Power Fantasy shipped sold out?
They did, and they're doing 2 different variants for a reprint. I'm going to spoil it for people who don't shop at Challengers. We're probably not going to be ordering the reprint because we ordered a ton of copies of issue 1, and while it's selling well, we did not order to sell out in the first arc. We mentioned
this last week. We went deep.
Yeah.
Because we want this book to be something, because it's an ongoing series.
Yep.
We want to be able to get people into it for a while.
Yeah, and it's a sort of book that I think it could put into a lot of people's hands. It was fun to talk to people about it at the front counter because there's kind of 3 tracks you can pitch it on. You can say, hey, if you were a fan of Wicked and the Divine, this is that, but superheroes. It's all the things you liked about the interpersonal stuff, about how prickly the characters were, about how dense the world was, but superheroes instead of pop stars.
And if you're a fan of Immortal X-Men, you can say, hey, it's that, but with swears.
Right. And then there was like a 3rd track where people were like, I didn't read either one of those books. And it's like, okay, well, it's kind of like a more modern take on something like Miracle Man, where it's superpowered people, not superheroes, in the real world, and they've been there for like 50 years, and how does that affect human development and society and culture and all these things, and what happens when the whole point of them is that if they fight, the world's basically over. So this isn't going to be a book where they're just constantly punching each other. Again, like in Miracle Man, when they fight, it's bad for humanity. So like 3 different ways into that book.
It's like nuclear war in the 1950s.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, there's very much the metaphor for them is like they are a nuclear arsenal. So countries have those things. You never, ever, ever want to use them.
They also did something which is almost unheard of in today's publishing, where after having solicited the cover to the first issue, they thought about it and said, you know what? That cover does not reflect what happens in the first issue, and it's maybe not the best first glance at this property.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So let's completely redo it.
At least based on the first issue, it was not indicative of the tone of the book.
Yeah, it was a good piece of art, and it was a fun piece of art. But having read that book, it's like it doesn't land.
Yep.
So they completely redid it and then did a surprise 50-50 variant with the cover with just the trade dress is slightly different.
Yeah, just Ryan Hughes doing a slightly different thing with Casper Weingard's art. Because that's what happens when you have Ryan Hughes.
Yeah.
You get to do fun stuff like that. Yeah, I really like Power Fantasy #1, and it was nice to be able to kind of have a book like that. And it happens all the time. I don't want to make it sound like there's never anything we're excited about, but there's weeks where it's very difficult to find the book that you think connects with the most amount of people. Sometimes it's a book where you're like, this is good, but very few people are going to dig it.
This was surprised nobody that occasionally we have this discussion with exactly this tone. Oh man, what is the Challenger's choice this week?
There have been times where the Challenger's choice for the week is a facsimile reprint or an issue 2 because all of the new #1s are terrible, or a graphic novel because all the new comics are bad.
Not bad, just not something that we feel as a store we can get behind and give our combined stamp of
just
approval.
Not worth promoting.
Not a thing that we're going to say to everybody, hey, you should have this in your life.
Yeah.
There's plenty of books that we don't necessarily feel land with us that people love. But there's got to be a book that we can at least say, we are genuinely excited for you to read this comic.
We think it's cool that you read this book.
And if it happens to be Secret Wars #8, sure.
People are really excited about that reprint.
It also won't be Secret Wars 8
They've gone
because
back
there's
to
a ton
press
of
on that
things.
thing before, right? They must have done a facsimile before they started doing this whole Secret Wars reprint, right?
I don't know.
I feel like they must have. How could you not?
Probably just in like Best of Spider-Man collections or something.
No, I mean, they've reprinted it a million different ways, but I just mean, like with the facsimile books, if you were making a list of 20 facsimile books from Marvel's history that you would reprint, Secret Wars 8's got to make that list, right?
So for X-Men, would it be Death of Phoenix or Days of Future Past?
So obviously they've done both at this point.
Right, but
the thing with Days of Future Past is they also had to do the second part of Days of Future Past. It's not like, I'm thinking of like a one-issue thing. Like even for X-Men, like
good call. Marvel Team Up 50.
Like even for X-Men,
it was Thing versus Thing. It was excellent.
They did Jim Lee's X-Men #1, and that's done well, but I don't think it's done great for us relative to like what I think of as its importance in comics history. So I think X-Men books, like
we definitely do way better.
Maybe that Wolverine, Captain America,
Black
Widow story. I mean, that's pretty iconic as far as that was 248, wasn't it?
Yeah, because 266 was Gambit.
It was 268. What am I thinking of? 260.
Gambit Part 3.
Was it? Okay, yeah. 248 and 267, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
We tend to not do as well with the deeply historically significant reprints. For example,
no, 268 is the...
Oh, is it?
Yeah. What was 248 then?
I know there are people listening to this shouting out the issue numbers.
It's fine, go ahead.
Like we said before, we get issue numbers wrong.
Oh, no, 248 is just like a Mark Silvestri.
Okay, so what's 266?
But 248 was the... What was the significance of that one? Cradle Will Fall, Chris Claremont. I think it's... 248 is the first one, I think, with Jim Lee art.
Okay.
But like, I think it's a Silvestri cover, is it? No, it's a Jim Lee cover, Jim Lee and Dan Green.
That's okay. The early Byrne issues had Cockrum covers.
But 268, I think, is the start of his run. I think is how that works.
So you check 266 for me?
If I can. I don't know how, previous issue. Gotta type it in. 266? Because 267 is Gambit, right? Yeah, 266 is just, it's a Jim Lee cover.
That goes for thousands of dollars now.
266 does?
And that just mean the original art.
Oh no, 266 is Gambit. There was the 267 cover that it was showing me. This is a hilarious episode of us getting a ton of just details about comics wrong.
Yeah, right?
Just flat out wrong.
Well, I wanted to prove the point from before for those who thought that we were flawless.
No. Mike Collins did the art back then. That issue just came out as a facsimile recently, and I paged through it and went, oof, Mike Collins.
Sure.
Oh boy.
Also that Gambit costume.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while for people to figure out how to make it look right. And some of it is just like, Jim Lee draws Gambit in a very different way than like Art Adams or Mike Collins does.
Sure.
Jim Lee definitely leans into like, lady killing Remy LeBeau as opposed to like some weird creep in like a trench coat who hangs out with like a 13-year-old Storm. It's just weird.
Who was eventually going to
Kind of weird.
start a romance with Kitty Pryde and make her the queen of the thieves?
The Thieves. What were we talking about? How do we get on this?
Literally no idea. Facsimile editions. I was saying how historically the classic Golden Age books don't do as well for us.
No,
The books that have the
you can
most
tell 'cause
historical significance.
we can keep getting them back in stock. Is
Yeah.
the thing. Like those aren't sold out at Lunar or PRH.
It's always fun to have them, and I think who wouldn't want to see that? But comic books were so different.
Yeah, in fact, I just said Lunar and PRH, but it springs to mind that I don't think Marvel has done a lot of their pre-Silver Age stuff as facsimiles, if any, that I can think of. Like, I don't remember them really doing like Captain, because someone had asked recently, like, have they done a facsimile of the cat punching out Hitler cover? I'm like, I don't think so. And I wonder if the reason why we don't get a lot of that stuff is because a lot of it is racist now.
Probably.
Probably. Like, there's a Shazam thing that they can't reprint because it's like, oh, now it's horribly racist.
Yeah.
It was then, but I guess nobody thought about it or didn't care. Or
But
whatever.
it was societally acceptable?
Yeah,
Racism?
the window of what we will accept as a society and art has changed drastically. I would say for the better.
Also, societally acceptable racism is not the title of this episode.
No, God, no. Whew. Talk about a mistake. Yeah, so facsimile editions for X-Men. Like, what would you say?
Well, that's just it. I didn't want to
Yeah.
do too many per one category. Like I'd
Right.
say Avengers 4,
Sure.
but, that's maybe too far back.
No, I think
like,
Silver
I did-
Age to the present, because I think that's
Yeah.
what people think of as the Marvel Age. Like, when you're thinking of
So Marvel's done a ton of
40
early
stuff, it's not
X-Men
really-
facsimiles. They've done like, the first Magneto, not first Magneto, that's number one. But I mean, the first,
nearly anybody you can think of.
Yeah.
Like, they did the first Dazzler, they did the first Emma Frost,
but
they
going
did the
all the way
first
back
Kitty
to the
Pryde.
Lee and Kirby stuff, they've done like I can't.
The
who
first
am I thinking of?
Juggernaut. They've done
Yeah.
the first. Like, who else did they do? Like, because they did like the Scarlet Witch,
The first
Quicksilver.
Toad, the first,
like
things like
the
that.
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I think they did like issue 4 or something. They've done a lot of that stuff, but I don't, especially for some of the later, like the Claremont Byrne stuff, because they did like the first. I think it was Emma Frost, and she's not even on the cover or anything, so it's like, all right,
Because it was the first Kitty Pryde as well.
yeah, and the cover needs to be significant. I think more than the contents need to be significant, because people on the spinner rack, if you're a huge fan, you might get the significance of this issue. And if it was a slab book, it'll have a little thing that'll say like first Emma Frost. But when you're buying it off of a facsimile spinner rack, the cover needs to be something where you're like, I've seen that a million
Well,
times.
then you know what they need to do? A facsimile of Ghost Rider number 1 and make it glow in the dark again. They need to facsimile.
Issue 1 didn't glow in the dark.
Was it 15?
Yeah, it was like a much later issue.
Yeah. So what they need to do is
issue 1 was just a good
Javier Soltara.
Javier Soteris cover.
Yeah, standing next to the bike. What they need to do is redo facsimiles of all of their biggest gimmick covers. The hologram X-Men covers.
I was genuinely
the
thinking,
foil Spider-Man
like,
covers.
what would it cost nowadays if they did a facsimile of Marvel's number 1 with that acetate cover? Like,
Right.
what is that thing? $20 now, based on how they
You
do
know,
their. Although I'm sure they'd put cover price $4.99 and then charge us $18 for it, and
Sure.
be like, I don't know, figure it out.
the embossed Silver Sable number 1.
Sure.
Even though there are
All of the Phalanx Covenant issues
yeah.
with the hologram, or no, Fail Attractions was the holograms, and Phalanx Covenant I think was something else. Man, no, I think they both had holograms.
Silver Sable had so many copies printed, but I guarantee you we would sell, a good like 10 off the shelf.
At full at like a modern price of like $6.99 or
Yeah.
something, even though that's $1 book anywhere you go, anywhere in the country.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What this week, was it a Labyrinth?
Yeah.
They just had a completely different cover?
They did that for each issue. The B cover is brand new, and the A
Okay.
cover is the original Labyrinth cover from Marvel.
I think that we had mainly pre-orders for the B cover.
We had 2 Bs and 1 A,
Okay.
and we did not carry it for the shelf.
Yeah, we learned quickly
Uh-huh.
that especially when they put the original cover price on the front cover.
Yeah, which didn't, like, it wasn't that big of a deal for us, but it didn't sell, so we just stopped ordering it for the
Sure.
shelf.
Yeah, we've got specific customers who are just facsimile customers. I'm fine with that.
You don't mean subscribers, you mean like regular customers.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah. And it's cool. We restock that as much as we can. It's
Depending on what's available.
Always interesting to find out kind of which ones are going to click with people and which ones aren't. There's things that I think of as like, oh my God, everyone's going to want this. And then it's like, no one gives a shit. But I feel a little bit of warmth and pride every time someone buys my first Amazing Spider-Man issue.
I think we're almost out of it.
I've almost reordered it,
Yeah.
but I'm like, it's a fluke.
Well, knowing that they are reprinting every black costume Amazing
such a
Spider-Man
great
appearance, you don't have to worry about not having the first one in stock.
It's such a good cover, though. I think that's why people buy it. It's just, it worked on me as a kid. That Rick Leonardi, like him, black costume Spider-Man, crouched on top of the battle van, shadowy figure coming in for an attack. Again, you think it's Hobgoblin, or if you're me as a kid, you have no context for who this could possibly be because you've never heard of the Hobgoblin before either.
Sure.
You just buy it. It just looks cool.
You just like rain covers, I guess. Does that have to go on your wall? Is that what you're looking for?
I mean, I bought it. I don't know if I should put it up. Maybe I probably should. What would I take down, though? Nothing.
We'll go around the corner.
Yeah, maybe.
It does violate your number one theme, though.
Yeah, but that isn't necessarily even... It wasn't the theme. That was an accidental theme. The comics I have on display for anybody who can't see this right now, which is everybody listening to this but Patrick.
No, my eyes are closed. I can't see either.
Unbelievable Gwenpool #1. Not her first appearance, but it's issue 1 by Guru Hero with an amazing Guru Hero cover. Quasar #1. To which Tom Brevoort this week recently poo-pooed the idea of doing more Wendell Vaughn comics because Wendell Vaughn is boring. And you know what? He's not wrong.
He's too nice of a character.
He's
nice
not
and
boring.
Morally ambiguous.
Mark Greenwald didn't want to write a memorable creep. Power Pack #1 by June Brigman and Weezy Simonson. Aztec the Ultimate Man #1. Great Howard Porter cover. And the Legion of Superheroes #1 from the 5-year gap 89 reboot cover by Keith Giffen.
So those are the single issues you have hanging here in the actual podcastatorium.
That has personal significance to me.
But outside of this control room, or I'm sorry, recording, the control room's outside. Yeah, I have 2 books hung up. Can you tell me what they are?
Do you really?
Yeah.
I don't. I didn't know this.
One I bought specifically to hang up in one of the exact same frames that you have.
Okay.
One that was a CGC book that was gifted to me Christmas 2022.
For the record, the frames are just Ultra Pro frames that we sell in the store.
Yes.
If you want to hang up your comics, we sell them. I recommend it.
We also sell, here's the thing that people don't realize we sell, and once I point them out to somebody, he's in love with them. We sell what we used to call Snap Happies, but are now called Snap-Its. They are a package of 12 vinyl frames that aren't frames, they're pockets.
Yeah, pockets.
They have a clear front, a black back. It's just a pocket you put the book into from the top, and it has plastic grommets on the side and the top and the bottom, so you can snap it to other ones. So you can hang one by itself, you can create a vertical row, a horizontal row, or like a whole cube.
2x4, you could do like a step system where it's like the bottom row is 4 and the row above that's 3 and the row above that is 2. You can make geometric shapes. It's very fun.
Like back in the day, I had a bunch of different Glenn Fabray Hellblazer covers in my stairwell.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of cool about the pockets is that you can change them around a lot faster than you can with like the Ultra Pro things, which are really, you can take them down and pop it open and put a new thing in, but these are just pockets, and you can do these cool theme displays. So if you said, for 1 month, it's like, I just want to see X-Men covers.
Yeah.
You drop in 11, 12 X-Men covers. And then a couple months later, you're like, you know what? Mark Silvestri covers. And then you take out the X-Men stuff and you put in Mark Silvestri covers, some of which are X-Men covers. And then you're like, just orange covers. And you put in a bunch of orange covers.
Sure. So we've been stocking these for like a year now, but we haven't ever we don't display them anywhere. They're just in their packages with our supplies. I don't think people know what they are.
No.
We don't have the wall space to hang anything up with them, but I always thought that they were a very affordable, fun way to have adaptable displays.
Yeah, like a rotating display. It's very cool. I think they're neat.
I do too, but now you have to guess what my books are.
So the graded book was a gift.
Yes.
Is it a Captain America book?
No. Why don't you focus on the book that I bought to hang up? I bought it online because I don't know that I ever kept it, because it's not a comic that you worry about keeping when you get it. Notice I didn't say buy it.
So it was like a freebie book?
It is the most Challengers comic that there is.
Oh, man.
I mean, what is the one property you think of when you think of Challengers over the years? I can't believe I already gotten that. For all of the books that we've touted as Challengers books, it's like our biggest success story. It was back when we felt like we had more of a pull with people.
Was it Little Bird?
And it did well for us for 50 issues.
Oh, Six Gun.
And I had to go buy
FCBD Six Gun.
So I had to go buy the FCBD Six Gun for like $3 online.
Wow, what a great value.
Yeah, agreed.
And that person made 300% more. Wait, no, that's infinite numbers because they spent $0. That's great. Okay, so Six Gun, yes.
Yeah, you're never going to guess the other one. It was
definitely not, because it was a gift.
The only clue you had was that Six Gun ran for 50 issues. This is Marvel Premiere number 50.
Oh, man. What is that even? What is Marvel Premiere 50?
Alice Cooper.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's right. That was the last issue, right?
I don't know if it was the last issue or not, but it definitely was.
Well, now I'm going to look it up because people need us to be
because that's
more
what
on
this
our ball.
episode is.
Let's fact check this on
looking
Dell's
things
phone.
up on his phone.
Marvel Premiere.
Why don't you just ask? Why don't you see if Siri can tell you?
I don't want to ask Siri anything.
Hey Siri, when did Marvel Premiere end? She doesn't care. Mine can't do anything because it was the phone. Yours wouldn't answer because it was my voice, not yours. I definitely think.
No, I mean it was going. There was a little thing,
but it didn't find anything.
61. You're right.
Yeah. Okay.
61 issues from April 1972
so what was the
to
last,
August 1981.
What was the last?
Oh, I'm going to look. Issues.
I guarantee you there's one person listening who knows what the answer to this is.
Okay, wow. So issues 57 to 60, Doctor Who.
Okay.
Issue 61, Star-Lord.
Okay. Those Doctor Who's were Dave Gibbons. They were not new stories. They were taken from Doctor Who Monthly magazine and put into a
somehow.
American
so there's 3 columns on this Wikipedia thing: issue, characters, collected in. The Doctor Who, and someone out there who is a bigger fan of 1970s, 80s Marvel stuff can come in and tell us why this is. The Doctor Who issues are listed as being reprinted in Werewolf by Night: The Complete Collection, Volume 3. But I think it's just the backups, because there's a thing that says backups, so there must be backups in 57 to 60 that are
not,
new Werewolf by Night
because those
things.
Doctor Who stories were, like 5-6 pages from the magazine.
Sure. But anyway, yeah, issue 61, the final issue of Marvel Premiere, was a Star-Lord story.
Which is weird because that's not his first appearance.
That Alice Cooper issue never collected in anything, Patrick.
It's probably a rights issue because those rights went to Dark Horse, and then who was IDW had them? There have been a lot of Alice Cooper comics over the years.
I'm going to run down the characters from Marvel Premiere that were never collected in anything, because it wasn't just Alice Cooper. It was Monarch Skystalker.
Wow.
It was 3 issues of 3D Man.
Okay. I remember those.
It was Seeker 3000.
Oh, wow.
And it was Caleb Hammer.
Okay.
Even the Star-Lord things in like 2 different collections.
Sure. They'd be a fool not to reprint that.
I think we're all learning something today about comic books. I don't know what. People can let us know what they learned.
We're learning that as far as industry weeks go that have
tons of news
repercussions on our business. It is, so we talked about July numbers last week, and oftentimes we find that I can't think of the word. The industry is, what's a word for the same for everybody at the same time?
Synchronous?
Like there'll be Wednesdays where we're slow and stores in Vegas are slow and stores in New Jersey are slow. Like it's
there's like an equilibrium, if that's what you mean.
Or like if we have a really great Saturday, everybody has a great Saturday.
Standardization.
So there's a lot of that, but there's always outliers, and there's people who are like, hey, we had the best July we've ever had, store that's been open for, longer than we have.
Sure.
And I always think like, man, what are the circumstances around that happening?
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to, because on paper, the amount of money that our store generated in July is not insignificant. It's just that the costs to get them
the profit
are
margins.
higher.
Profit margins are the problem.
Are higher, and it's all the other expenses and expenditures. And we talk about that to death, which is a thing that's literally on our mind every day. I was talking to a friend this week about how money is just, they say, the root of all evil, but it's just such a constant
stress.
Yeah, it's a constant stressor.
Yep.
And while we are, again, so fortunate to have people that to sponsor shelves, those are all for a specific goal.
Right.
Which, man, I would love it if the electric company would get the bulbs in so we can schedule that. Maybe I'll bug them again tomorrow.
So we finally get to the point where we've raised money through a special program to be able to pay to fix our lights. And then the next step is the thing that's just like, that's just taking forever now. Like,
yeah.
We have the money now. That was the holdup for the longest time, and now there's more.
So we the quick story for the electrician we're using is we had a really great recommendation from several local people for a local electrician. So I reached out, and he got back to me right away saying, yeah, I can totally do this, but I'm not free until 2025. And because I'm a one-person operation, I'm probably more expensive than somebody else that you would use.
Yeah, we would rather not wait that long and pay more.
So then I went back to just digging up places, and I hit a couple of them. Only one of them responded, and I was using their own website contact forms. So only one of them had replied saying, yeah, we can come out and spec this out.
Right.
So they came out, spec'd it out. They were at the very high end of our budget, but they were still within our budget. And so we said, okay, let's do it. But it was still like 2 weeks it was a full week. And I'm like, hey, where's that quote? And the next day, like, yeah, here it is. And then we talked on the phone, and then I signed an agreement saying we're going to do this. Then they're like, all right, now that you signed the agreement, we just need to, and we had to pick the bulbs we're using.
Mm-hmm.
So like, we just have to order those bulbs and then schedule it. And that's where we still are weeks later.
Unbelievably.
So anyway, that is we'll be very excited, and it will be a thing that I think we've mentioned this before. No one will probably notice. But you definitely will if you're in the toy section. You won't hear that buzzing anymore.
Yeah, that's what you're not going to hear. Oh,
we won't hear it either. And also, it'll be years before we replace these bulbs.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Very excited about that.
And also, when a bulb burns out, eventually, we'll be able to replace it, and it'll work. Because of all the bulbs we have out now because of the ballasts.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is the main first goal for the shelf sponsorship. So thank you to everybody.
Thanks,
and
folks.
Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.